Aloha, welcome back to Right to Rise podcast, where we explore the power of storytelling as medicine and how your personal stories can be the foundation for transformation, purpose, and impact. Today, I am so pumped. I am bringing one of my soul sisters in business and in life. She is one of the most inspiring people I've ever met, Odilia Hernandez Underwood, also known as on Instagram as Mexicana RN. Odilia is a board certified holistic nurse coach. She is a cannabis nurse consultant and educator and a proud United States Air Force veteran. Whoop, whoop.
Whoop.
Odilia is a powerhouse in every sense of the word. Her personal story from battling lupus to reclaiming her health and using plant medicine as part of her healing has become the catalyst for her life's work. Now, through her book in progress and her practice, she's empowering others to take charge of their healing journeys through the use of cannabis and holistic wellness practices. She's currently enrolled in my Inspired Author program, where we are working together to bring her story and her mission to life on page. This book isn't just a memoir, it's a movement, and I can't wait for you to meet the beautiful soul behind it. Odilia, thank you for being here today.
Oh my God, that was so beautiful.
Good,
Thank
right?
you so much. That was so good. So good. I was like, whoa, who's that lady?
Look
That's
at
me.
us walking into our main character energy, right?
Right. You spoke them words of like just, oh, yeah, it's chills. Loved it. It was great.
Oh my gosh. Well,
Thank you.
Odelia, you have had so much going on recently, from standing at the White House and fighting for rights. You are a person that not only like speaks about it, but you're about it. You live about it, right? You're walking the walk, you're talking the talk, and I love this fire behind you because you are just a go-getter. You're an action taker. And if you say you're going to do it, you're going to do it. So
Oh.
tell us a little bit about that journey and about that fire. Like, what is it, that journey that gave you that fire? Or do you just, where does it come from? And tell us a little bit more about that.
So I will start off by saying that, since I was in my younger years, I've seen myself being that girl who burns her bra on the White House lawn. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, one day, but all I don't wear a bra. I mean, metaphorical. I don't know, whatever. But I feel like, yeah, I want to go there and like do something and I don't know, just be a part of the thing that is going on. And with cannabis, it started here locally in Nebraska. I wanted to help these initiatives brought up by the constituents, the people who were advocating for medical cannabis, and it's been a struggle. It's been about going on for about 10 years, so I got to meet a bunch of wonderful mothers who are, fighting for their children to have, medical cannabis to help them live a functional and a life that that they have a quality of life. So in me doing so, though, like getting involved was more on a personal level, I guess. I have been diagnosed with lupus for about 10 years or so. It took them about a year to diagnose me, and I started kind of going on like a decline. My kidneys were not doing the best, so I changed. I had to change something, and I looked into holistic care, plant medicine, and in knowing that, being a nurse and not being able to consume something like cannabis, being plant medicine, it can be very scary. Um, so it's, we got to do something. There's a huge stigma, and I just don't want to stand idly by and be one of those people who complain that, like everything that's going on. I wanted to be able to say, hey, I actually did something. I went out and, you know, collected signatures, talked to people, educated and informed them, but like, being out there and I don't know, it just gives you this sense of feeling like you are doing something. I'm not, I mean, we are. That's the hope, and so I think it was just and being a voice for people as a veteran, I think was really huge for me. If there are people who can't stand up to for our rights, or they can't speak up, use their voice, then I want to be that voice for those people. And thank you. I feel like cannabis has brought life back to me. It's something. I'm part of this highly aligned tribe where I hang out with cannabis nurses on Mondays, and we were talking about archetypes and how we embody certain things. And we had like a post or something on one of our Instagrams, and somebody was talking about how people who are involved with cannabis are so enveloped by it. Like, I live my life by it. And I was like, yeah, 100%. Because I feel like it's one of the biggest things that has brought life back into my, I'm able to live. I'm not struggling, I'm not suffering. And that's, yeah, so I'm all about it. I'm loud about it. It's everywhere. And yeah, there's a huge stigma that still needs to be broken because we view it as this harmful drug or this thing that we don't know much about, like it hasn't been around since the beginning of time, or it's not somehow scientifically proven to be useful because we have an internal cannabinoid system. And, like, I feel like as much as I say that, there is still somebody else who doesn't know what that word is or has not heard it. So, yeah. So to get back to what got me involved was being somebody who has lupus and needing something like plant medicine to heal me, and then being an advocate for all the people that, I may have educated before when I was all gung ho about medicine, and like, hey, I used to give chemo, and I want to be able to offer not just traditional medicine, but like that holistic, and maybe even integrating them, because I feel like there's a huge need to integrate both of them, and it just depends on each person individually as a patient. But yeah, so to be the voice and the feet and the hands and all that jazz.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you're speaking to so many things here because we both are trained traditionally in medicine as nurses. And our training is not holistic. It's more of this corporate modern medicine. I didn't learn any alternative medicines going to school. Where were you introduced to these holistic practices, and then the plant medicine piece, because that is so stigmatized? We get drug tested as nurses. Where was that switch for you, and where did it come into your practice and in helping your patients?
Yeah, sure. Lovely questions. I love them all. So I will say holistically, or maybe I come from a very poor background. I don't think we had very much. We lived in the ghetto, in the hood, and I don't remember having health insurance until later in life when my dad got like a really good job. And like, I don't know, I was in high school, freshman maybe in high school. And my mom is Mexican. She is an OG from there. She's what my dad calls an original Mexican. And she brought, a lot of homeopathic remedies, teas. She would grow a lot of what I call yerba buena, which I'm assuming is peppermint tea or mint tea, and then manzanilla, because yerba buena means good herb. So literally translated, it's just a good herb. So I just, yerba buena, it's a good herb. My mom's gonna make me some tea. I'm gonna drink it. It's gonna be some good stuff, right? Chamomile. Chamomile is like a staple for me growing up. And so I don't know what I would do without that, or even like when I was younger, if somebody told me to eat like a dandelion or a plant, like telling me, oh, like that's healthy for you, I'd try it. I think I still have that attitude. Like, it may not taste the greatest, but if it's good for me and it's making me healthy, then kind of changing that definition of, or changing that idea that, hey, it's good for me, it tastes good, this is making my body healthy, and then you just come to love it because it makes you feel good. And then once you feel good, you don't ever want to go back. Anyways, sorry. Yeah. So the holistic stuff originally came from my mom. I did use plant medicine in high school. somebody was like, hey, let's spark up. And I was like, sure, let's try it. I'm down for anything. And, I actually don't remember the very first time that I had smoked cannabis, because back in the day, that's all you could really do was smoke it. And that I knew of. I'm sure there was more ways, but I was not introduced to that like some of these OGs, right? And so smoking it, I realized, or I felt like, oh my God, like normal. I don't even know how to explain it to you. I just knew I felt normal in that moment where I was around others, and maybe a couple of us, and we're smoking, and I felt normal is the only thing I can tell you. And so I enjoyed it. I was like, oh, I'm gonna like do this more often. So I was one of those breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, midnight snack type of tokers. And I did it for until I joined the military, I would say. So I quit smoking cannabis before I joined the military, and then once I started. And then once I was after nursing school, because man, I didn't touch cannabis for a minute, and maybe here and there, someone would be like, "Hey," and I'd be like, "Sure, why not?" But nothing like wild. I recreationally used it every now and then after I had become a nurse and divorced, because I didn't live in that fear of like, oh my God, my husband's gonna like divorce me. Anyways, and so I would use it recreationally, and then once the lupus came on, I thought I got to do something else. When I was taking naproxen like anywhere from 500 to 1,000 milligrams, I was on Topamax, I was on Adderall, I was on anything to like. I'm suffering from allergies now, possibly, who knows, but I was always taking an antihistamine, and I was taking Sudafed because the combo medication. I was taking an anticonvulsant for migraines, so topiramate. I was on so many. I was on lots of antidepressants. I was on maybe Wellbutrin. I was on a slew of pills, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my kidneys started to fail me, and that's when I was like, we have got to start doing something different. Like, I'm like, so I looked, I'm like, hey, let's look at all my pills. I think it's funny that I asked for a clinical pharmacist in the moment when I was polypharma, and I was like, hey, we need to do something about this, and I want your help from like the VA, because I'm a veteran and I get my health from there. And now I don't take any of my pills, right? And I just had my recent follow-up with my rheumatologist. I got a call from a clinical pharmacist from my primary care doctor, and they're like, we need to talk to you. And I'm like, I wonder if this has anything to do with me basically telling him, thank you, but no thank you. Because he's like, what can I do for you? And I'm like, nothing. I'm not going to listen to you anyway. So it's, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. So that was the turning point, is when I felt like I was losing my life. I was losing my very vital organ. But it didn't just start with like cannabis. Okay, what is like the most non-invasive thing I could do? Quit drinking, right? Like, holy shit. Like,
Massive.
just quit drinking alcohol. And I will admit, I feel like I had a problem with over drinking, and then using it to medicate yourself, obviously. But like, and then you just feel like shit. You feel like a worthless human being, and you're like, why am I doing this to myself? And then yet you go do it again, right?
Yep.
So that was the first thing I did, and like, it was insane how much the weight just came off. Not even that I drank a lot, but it was something I did routinely, and just came off. Dairy, I was like, oh, I still try now really hard not to eat dairy, although I do. But as much as I used to eat it before, oh my gosh, that was it. My body doesn't like it. So I had to figure out what my body was okay with. And I think that's something everybody has to figure out. Like, what is it? I had to figure out what it was that was going to make me feel better.
Yeah.
So doing all of those things, and then not being afraid to try something new because of the pain. I get auricular acupuncture done, so I have battlefield acupuncture. I have them in my ears, so I get that done. I Reiki. The VA is pretty cool with their whole health. They don't call it Reiki; they call it something else, some kind of healing. I can't remember exactly what kind of energy healing they call it, but it's basically, like the same thing.
Yeah.
Essential oils, anything, food, changing the way you eat,
Mhm.
adding spices to your food, turmeric, pepper, cayenne, um, movement, or just being fucking grateful, right? Like
Yeah.
not hating
Yeah.
life, right? But I will say cannabis really helps a lot. And I think I was kind of complaining earlier about like feeling bad about my cannabis intake lately, but ultimately, man, I have a lot of shit going on right now. Perimenopausal. I'm on my period, but I keep getting it. It's, and what I call a mini flare is I never say I've had a full on flare, thank God. I've been inpatient overnight once as an observation. Um, but like I'm so very grateful and I'm very healthy. But I will say like it started somewhere. It started in that moment where I had to decide I had to be different in order for me to make that change. And ultimately I will say in that moment it was my son. Like I wanted to live for him and be here for him. So if you're not doing it for yourself, um, you can do it for somebody else because you love them, but ultimately you
Yeah.
got to do it for you.
Yeah.
Sure. So I don't know if I answered all of your questions, but
That was beautiful. Yeah, of course you did. Anything that you're speaking to is divinely led, right?
oh,
So,
thank you.
and I love that you're speaking about polypharmacy because that is something that we're taught as nurses, and it is something that you see over and over and over again in medicine is a lot of these patients who are recurrent patients, they come in all the time, you know, what they're dealing with, their symptoms, and the reason that they're not getting better is polypharmacy. And,
Right.
you know, a lot of the medical practitioners are not communicating with other medical practitioners. So a lot of them
Hmm.
are on the same kind of medications that are creating the symptoms that they're having. And then you're taking another pill to combat those symptoms when we could eliminate all of that and get to diet and lifestyle factors that are actually going to be significantly more impactful on their
Yeah.
life, right?
Yeah.
And create more quality of life. But you and I both know this from a personal standpoint because we've been there and we
Yeah.
were following that path for ourselves and our bodies were shutting down. We're feeling the impact from it and searching for different answers. And you're talking about not just cannabinoids, you're talking about all plant medicine. And that's what a lot of people don't understand when
Yeah.
we speak about plant medicine is cacao, drinking like real hot chocolate that you make at home with chili powder and cinnamon, when you drink herbal teas, when you are, these are all, that's all plant medicine. It's
Right.
not just mushrooms, functional mushrooms, it's not just cannabis.
Right.
But you're also talking about, I think, this negative belief with marijuana or mushrooms is surrounded by, well, a government, right? The
Hmm.
government has criminalized these things that we're now trying to pull back and say, hey, these were criminalized for these reasons, but they're actually very powerful if they're used intentionally and the right way. And it's not to check out, it is, or to, tap out of reality. It's to balance our nervous systems and balance our bodies and give our bodies something that we inherently need. You're talking about our bodies have pathways for chi, they have pathways for opiates, they have pathways for cannabis, which is what you're talking about. And if we give our body what it needs in micro dosing,
Yeah.
then we're giving our body a nutrient that we've been lacking for however many years.
Absolutely. Even if you don't use it to get stoned or high or
Sure.
um, heavily medicated. I
Mhm.
mean, you can just take the hemp leaves, cannabis. Somebody actually asked me that today. They're like, "What's the difference between cannabis and hemp?" And I was like, "Actually, friend." I was like, "Let me tell you." I was like, "It's
Yep,
the same
yep.
plant. It's the same plant. It's just that, it has different amounts of THC in it. And that's because we decided, hey, we're going to call hemp something that's less than 0.3% THC in it. And then and things that are greater than 11% to whatever percent, call that marijuana. And I don't personally like to use the word marijuana, although I do use it sometimes. Um, I would prefer to use cannabis, but like when somebody does ask that kind of question, you're like, wow, there still is a huge, like knowledge gap there on
Right.
how even plant medicine, but using it not to even get stoned or high, you can consume it, like I said, the leaves or even the flower, and you can grind it up, put it in little capsules, which many people do, and it's like a superfood. It's amazing. The whole plant, the entire plant, can be used. And not only that, when you bring up the whole government, oh my God, I'm going to go on a rant. Okay, is that it used to be a part of our everyday life, the food that we ate. That's what, our animals were fed. And it was all taken away, and then we started doing dumb shit like feeding cows, and then we ended up with some crazier shit like mad cow disease. And we still question what are we doing? Let's go back to when our food was healthy and we were not pumping them full of antibiotics and steroids, because they had hemp feed
Yeah.
medicine, but
Yeah.
also it's superfood, and so all of that is out of our systems, and we have like this slew amount of women and men with autoimmune disorders, and we're first of all we're giving everybody antibiotics for every single little thing, killing all of their good bacteria, and feeding them crap. Like,
Hmm.
and what can you afford? Like, we have to be able to buy food, right? I mean, I used to come from a two-income household, right? And we used to go buy half a cow, that was, or grass fed. You know what? But I don't need a whole half a cow, right? Or half a cow, sorry. But yeah, that's what you ultimately want to do, is get back to the way it used to be, right? Sort
Sure.
of, in a sense, but make it better. But it's so stigmatized. We think it's even bad to be used in like everyday cosmetics, because it is. It's all, and it's so good for you. Hemp seed oil, it's amazing. I can't Has so many like benefits to it, and we just stigmatize it, and we're saying we're trying to outlaw it, but ultimately I think it's just because we're trying to keep people sick. That's it.
Well, and that does speak to, that is part of why you stepped away from corporate nursing. That's part of why I stepped away from corporate nursing. We look around and, these fat, sick, nearly dead doctors that are killing themselves, and we are killing ourselves to make these patients better and feed the system that's obviously broken.
Yes.
Why are people listening to this person that is also overweight, that is also, I worked in cardiology, right? So these doctors have this big belly and they're working 80-hour weeks, and they're, eating garbage on their lunch breaks and drinking heavily and probably other things. And
Yeah.
they're coming
Doing
in the
cocaine on
room
the weekend.
and yelling at patients that they need to stop doing these things, and
Hmm.
I'm like, this doesn't feel good to me, and also, like, why are we taking advice from somebody that's about to have a coronary event themselves,
Yeah.
like, why are we not listening to people who can function and move, and looking to those people that have what we want, which is
Yeah.
vitality, which is peace, which is wholeness and health, to look the way we want and to move the way we want. That's why you and I stepped away from medicine, because it is a fractured system, and we realized that we were just perpetuating illness, and we were becoming ill from that. Like, we're sacrificing ourselves for the greater good. I didn't go into nursing to make people sicker. I went in to help people and heal people.
Right.
And you did the same. So stepping into this holistic realm and understanding that plant medicine, or how can we use diet, how can we use lifestyle factors in our own lives. These are things that we implemented in our life to heal ourselves, and then we were like, ooh, this is powerful. Like, let me take this to the people that I need to serve. I want to talk more about what it's like to work with you, because aside from the stigma that's attached to plant medicine, somebody is curious now. They're hearing you today. They're like, okay, well, I want to know more about this cannabinoid system and how I can start pulling these medicines and getting rid of these blood pressure pills, getting rid of these diabetic medications. How, as a holistic nurse and a cannabis nurse and educator, what does that look like working with you?
Okay, so I love getting on calls with people, kind of just figuring out what it is that they need. Do they need just like a basic consult? They have a few questions about cannabis, you know, or is it like a whole, you know, thing that they're trying to do? Ultimately, I think, okay, what it looks like to work to me. Okay, so I would say it depends on the person and what their goals are, right? Everyone has like the ultimate, the one goal, and you got to figure out what that goal is ultimately, right? Is it really, oh, I'm going to lose 50 pounds, you know, or is it, I want to get off these medications? Working with me, I like to find, and it is a process. Because there's generally an underlying condition as to why this person is on hypertension medication. You know, well, why do they have high blood pressure? Is it because, you know, they have been living in survival mode for the past 10 years and they don't know how to undo that perpetual cycle of constant moving and going and burnout, that, you know, they've neglected themselves, right? So kind of pinpointing the underlying cause of the hypertension that's causing you to be on this medication. So, I mean, we think ultimately it's a physical thing. It is a whole person approach, right? Physical, spiritual, mind, it all kind of works together. But each person is very different too. Like, some people are more focused on the physical, mental, and you're working with each client, you have to figure that out. Okay, what is the ultimate goal? You're kind of working on finding the underlying thing and then their ultimate goal. And then it transforms into this beautiful healing thing, and mind shifts. Okay. I love when you get that click, right? And your client, I won't call them patient, but you get that click and your client is like, okay, like, you know, they become that person, right? So working with me, first of all, we identify the problem. After we identify the problem, I like to work on mindset. Mindset is huge for me, and working on mindset is typically meditation for me. However, I like to introduce different modalities of mindfulness, because what works for me won't necessarily work for you or Tom or Sarah, right? So maybe they don't tolerate, I don't know, meditation, or maybe they do yoga and that it puts them into that, you know, being mindful and, you know, that moment of just, you know, slowing down, right?
Yes.
So, so mindset, and then nutrition is another thing, like the physical part, because I would say a lot of the time people are hindered physically because of their thought process or what the beliefs that they have. So you got to work on that belief system before you even, I mean, you'll start seeing a few results, but once that click happens, even with your mind and your body, it's like exponential healing, right? Starts your goal, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm getting closer and closer to it. And then if my client so happens to have questions about plant medicine, this is also where I, introduce where plant medicine is just not cannabis or mushrooms. It's, teas, it's spices, it's oils. I love oils. So anything that will help them on their journey, say if it's inflammation. I love telling people to use castor oil packs. Like, if anything, I will say I am more non-invasive. I'm like, take an Epsom salt bath with frankincense, or take some coconut oil, and use that to moisturize your skin or cleanse your skin or help inflammation. Whatever it is that person, we kind of it's all catered to that individual. So that's kind of what it looks like working with me, and then maintaining. I have a wonderful client who's just lost so much weight. So excited for him, but it really is like this mind switch where they feel good. And I talk about feeling good, and once you get into that feel good space and your body feels good, you're no longer addicted to that like cortisol stream. You're not addicted to that because you're physically addicted to it. So then when you start trying to tell your body to calm down and be zen, your body's like, no, I need cortisol. So it's hard.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's hard, and you have to be unaddicted to, right? You have to get away from the cortisol, to get there. So, in a sense, there we go. That's what it's like working with me.
Yeah, it's so powerful too, because I think there's a lot of people in the online space that are claiming to be coaches, and they're like, yeah, I dropped out of my corporate thing, and through my own healing journey, I set this up. But that also gets into some hairy space. We're both board certified nurse coaches, and we're both qualified nurses. We operate under our BSN license. So we are held to very strict standards as far as nurse coaching goes, and as far as our nursing goes. We actually use a nursing process. We actually operate within a HIPAA guideline. So we are creating safe spaces for our clients to actually share their stories, and operating very, very differently than a lot of coaches in the online world. We've been trained to structure these coaching sessions for action, and we're listening deeply to that story and to that patient. And that is one of the biggest complaints in modern medicine, is I didn't get enough time with my doctor. He didn't even listen to me. She didn't even listen to me. She doesn't even know that that's part of the story. So when you open up a container with a nurse that is actually listening and looking and using that nursing discernment and looking at that, where is the breakdown? Because so much of health and wellness really is in that mindset. Or maybe it's tied to a trauma, or maybe it's tied to a behavior or a habit that we've set up. So you're linking all of that together. That is what modern medicine is missing. It's that mind, body, spirit connection, and that deep listening, that you are providing in those sessions. And it is incredibly powerful to have that ally and that source, to, hey, this is going on in my life. I'm feeling these symptoms. How can we, move forward? How do we move the needle forward? So you've not only brought in this bridge between Eastern and Western medicine, but you're serving your patients and clients so powerfully from that space, because you can teach them how to titrate off these medications. You're also like, we've got to bring these practices in. We need to start eliminating some of these things that are creating this behavior. And you're also linking the mentality. We do know that our depression, our anxiety, which are at peak levels, we've pandemic level depression and anxiety in children, younger and younger people. Suicide rates are skyrocketing right now. So it is something that we need to talk about. And it is directly linked to our lifestyle and the things that we are eating. Are you getting enough movement? Are you eating properly? Is this balanced? Do you have a higher power that you pray to? Do you have a belief system set up? So that's what I'm hearing you say, is you've created this whole system where it is the whole being. We're not looking at just your heart. We're not looking at just losing this 20 pounds, which is a byproduct of working with
Right.
you.
Oh, thank you.
We're looking at all of it, like how to get your life back, which is
Right. See,
massive.
it's so I think it's more rewarding for me to see that spark in somebody, like, or man, I feel really good, and it's almost brings tears to my eyes, like seeing some of these people's faces in my mind, and thinking like they were like, you know, even education, like you got questions about cannabis, I can educate you all day about. I can talk about it all day. Like I love it. Um, and even in meeting somebody at like I went to go get my nails done, right? And I was talking to somebody there, and they were like asking, about hemp and cannabis, because I mean, it's a very personal friend, and it was like somebody else that was there. So I just could go on, and but yeah, I could see the people in my mind thinking like, man, when that person asked that question, it's because they wanted to feel reassured that they're not being judged, or they don't feel like they have to hide the fact that they use alternative medicine, or even like I find it really hard to speak to some of your, like my providers, mental health providers, because I believe woo woo weird shit, right? What if I tell you like I hear God's voice, like,
Yeah, no,
you
that's
know,
the thing, right?
yeah,
So
or like
you,
I can
like, are
channel
you
my,
schizophrenic? Do you need medicine for that?
yeah, I can channel my ancestors.
Yeah.
What? Hold on. I think we need to have a conversation. But finding practitioners out there who are like, I would love to hear what your spiritual practices are, your spiritual beliefs are, versus, I think we need to put you on some drugs
Yeah.
because you're hearing voices.
Let's numb that.
Yeah, 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 exactly.
Mhm.
But I think it's really important to yeah, be open, because I will say for sure that there's a lot of times where I was like, I am not going to mention that to my provider. They're gonna
Yeah.
think I love, because I
Well, that,
remember being that nurse, talking about like the one patient in room 208. They are crystals everywhere and salt rock, and they're
and
soaking.
essential oils.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's
And
like
like, and
your
they really
favorite
think,
room to go in as a nurse, but like everybody else is talking crap about them. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I'm
So,
humming.
even like the first time that happened to me, I was a very young nurse, and I was really interested. I was like, well, what does it do? Like, what does that oil do? And people are like, why are you sitting there entertaining that person? And I'm like, because I'm interested in seeing why they think this works, or how, like, if it doesn't hurt, that's another big thing for me. If it doesn't hurt you, why not try it? Sound healing, um, I honestly think I manifested an alpha stimulator into my life through the VA, because I
Yeah.
went and when I was going down this spiral of pain, I was like, I need to find something that's going to help me not be in pain. I found Jose Silva, and
Yeah.
he's all about alpha
Mm.
brainwaves. And I went into the pain clinic, and I was like, I didn't even. I was just so tired from not getting sleep because my body hurt me so much. So it's just like it's like the snowball effect too. Like if you don't feel good, your body hurts, you're not sleeping, your immune system gets run down, and then this this happens, right?
Yeah. And you're
Or
just
worse.
exhausted to your
Yeah.
bones from it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I
Um,
was like that, and I didn't know what the hell was going on in this appointment. I went home, she handed me this pamphlet, and I read it, and I was like, oh shit, this thing puts you into alpha brainwaves.
yeah.
And so I had to go in clinic and do it a couple of times until I got my own. But that thing is amazing. I tell everybody about it. Because it's a really kind of open area where I go get my auricular acupuncture done at the VA. And so there's like this new person getting it for the first time, and I'm all like, oh yeah, like you, I use small ones, you might want to use, and she explained that he might want to use the big ones or whatever. um, and then I start going like, what else have you tried? Have you tried the alpha stimulator? He's like, no, but they told me about it today. I was like, you should try it, it works. So, and I'm all like, yeah, try the thing that it's not going to hurt you, because you never know, because even if it makes you happy, puts a smile on your face,
Yeah.
those are like feel good hormones that are coming out of your body just by that sort of thing. So
Yeah. And it's breaking that cycle too of Why are people not afraid to tack on one more pill with all these side effects? You see these commercials online, or you get a new prescription and it's got an entire notebook full of side effects. They're not afraid to put that in their body, but when you mention you might want to just start doing breath work 15 minutes a day, breathing. And they're so resistant to that at first,
Oh yeah, even meditation. Oh, I can't do that.
Yeah.
My mind races too much. And
Like,
the whole thing, the idea of meditation is not to have blank slate,
sure.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just that's the education piece that's something that people don't understand about nurses is 90% of the job of nurses is not only to save your life and to know all these things and to help you with that, but to train and to teach and to educate people about
Translate.
right to be that education. So meditation isn't I can't sit and not have a thought. It's just sitting and acknowledging what is there. And
Right.
I have ADHD. It might be 300 thoughts and 14 business ideas in 15 minutes. I'm acknowledging that, and at
Right.
some point I can figure out after a couple sessions of that, I can acknowledge that and sit with it and maybe try to quiet that and
Right. Slow it down.
retrain the brain to be present, be present, be present. So that's a beautiful lesson. And thank you for bringing that up because that is so powerful. Sometimes it's the easiest things. It's the breath work, it's the meditation, it's the sound healing. And
Oh yeah.
those are integral pieces to holistic healing that people are just so resistant to.
Yes.
You
I was
know,
there. I was
yeah,
there.
and it is. You just got to do that work, and
Right.
it feels amazing when you learn how to do it.
Now, Leslie, I will say that there's this, okay? Um, People think that it's wrong.
Mm.
Like the Lord don't want you doing that, girl.
Really?
I mean, that's how I feel. I find a lot of people like
Okay.
you're not supposed to meditate because you're not supposed to have a blank slate, but that's when you do the education. You're like,
Sure.
hey, that's not really what meditate means to think.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
and
I
this
mean,
isn't a prayer to a different God. This doesn't
right,
have like religious affiliation.
exactly.
Actually, the Bible mentions that is what was so different. When I went back and read the Bible, I've read the Bible 4 times over now, and
Hmm.
prayer and meditation, be still and
Yes,
know.
yes,
Still, meditation is just the practice of surrendering your body and your mind to whatever. I think that our culture is setting us up for more stimulation. You got to do, be, hustle. So we are at a place that it is probably harder now than ever to be still, but it
yes.
is it is the key to unlocking what you need in your life. And that means the health, the weight loss, the balance of the nervous system. What does that mean? Not being depressed, not having anxiety or being anxious, really tapping back into your inner knowing and your intuition.
Hell yeah,
And that is
absolutely.
integral into holistic health. So, let's spin off and talk a little bit about your book. We're still in the writing process, the Inspired Author Program. You came to write this in a book and get it out to more people. And we're still in the writing process. Talk a little bit about that process, about the book, what you want the readers and your audience to know most from the book.
Okay, I will start out with I've always loved to write, and I think I've always seen myself as one day I see myself authoring a book, right,
Mm.
and or writing a book or whatever. Um, so uh, in doing so, talking to you and like getting this thing out there and then actually putting it into practice was almost like opening something up inside me to
Mm.
allow for even more healing, to speak the things maybe I didn't want to talk about. And so I did splurge a lot. I'm like, here, Leslie, here's this, and it's all over the place. Ultimately, I want my book to speak to people who are tired, exhausted, but know that there's something better out there, right? And for people to know the things that I have gone through, my struggles, as a nurse, as a mom, as a veteran, I feel like so many people would be able to relate to my story and find hope. And that's ultimately what I want people to know, that there's hope. There's something else, and it might not be plant medicine. Maybe it's I found my higher power. It's not just the one thing. It's a whole special sauce that is very unique to everyone. So that's basically the thing I want to get across, and just share how impactful plant medicine has been for me. Though also, I want to touch on how that has been taken away from us. We've totally laid claims that indigenous medicine is like no good. It's we don't need it in our society. But going back to that, and knowing that that's right for me, because I can feel it in my DNA. Like I connect with my ancestors through plant medicine. So also kind of speaking to that. So it's kind of my life story, and then my coaching practice and how I coach, and also my beliefs about plant medicine and the things that, and kind of what has happened, why it's been taken away from us, and then maybe going back to that through, because it is a whole holistic journey, and plant medicine definitely brings that to the forefront. And it could be in a good way. So
It's going to be her book is called Healing Through the Leaf. And it really is so powerful to speak of these indigenous practices that we've been cut off from. And we know that modern medicine is failing us. So we've got to do things very, very differently. And she's speaking to bringing stuff back that has been used since the beginning of time, that we've been cut off from, and that people are starting to reconnect with, and really, really wake up to what we need in our lives. And it is this awakening process. And I love that you're speaking to that too through the writing, because as nurses, as the modern miseducation system, we are taught to really hate writing, right? And we learn through care plan after care plan that, well, I never wanted to read another book. I never wanted to write another paper in my life after I graduated from nursing school. I'm like, write a book, what? So I want to talk about that, because I teach in my Inspired Author program. This is more of a sacred practice, more of a ritual practice, a healing practice in sharing your story, unlocking your voice, getting those stories out of your body so that you can move and write your own story and write a new story. So
right, yeah.
I'm curious how this process, has there been anything surprising through the writing process for you, or anything that you have unlocked through it?
For sure. I think we all think we get to this moment as I have arrived, right? Like, I am here. I made it finally, motherfucker. This is it, right? And then all of a sudden it's like, wham! Somebody swipes your feet right from under you, right? You're like, what the fuck? I thought I was done with this. I thought I had said thank you, trauma, for teaching me and bringing me here. Yet, in opening that up, which I will say my biggest fear is, back in the days in therapy, and I'm hoping people can relate to this, is in opening that up. It can be scary, and you don't want to fucking face it. But if you just allow it, and you allow yourself to just be free to write the things that your soul is meant to like speak to others.
Mm,
It's transformational, not only for you, but like for the people around you.
mm,
Um, I think they see you in a different light. Um, and it's just it's healing. And it's never gonna stop. We're not ever gonna like arrive. You're never gonna fucking arrive. Okay,
mm,
like we could keep thinking, oh, I finally made it to my 2.0 self, right? And then you're thinking like, oh shit, but like we can. I want to be more. So ultimately, learning that it's never ending. Growth, healing. It doesn't stop. That any day you are taking a fucking breath, grow. I mean, learn something new. And I, a quote, I don't know if this is something I came up with, but I always say, the day you stop thinking is the day you die. The day you stop learning is you die. If it's you die in your career, you die in a relationship. I mean, those are learning is growth, healing is growth. They're all to me one and the same, maybe slightly different, but you can't do them. You can't just stop doing them or you die because, like I said, your career, relationship, whatever. So it's just you got to keep going. And it's beautiful because ultimately I might write something in this book in 10 years from now and be like, what was she thinking, And that's the whole point, right? I think the more you contradict yourself as you grow, it's because you've evolved so much. So I think definitely it's brought that out for me in thinking like, gosh, man, I thought I was done. And it's like, bitch, you're never done.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I spoke about this the other day on another podcast. As you get the thing that you've been working your whole life for, and then you're like, what next? And it is if you aren't growing or learning or pushing yourself a little bit further past that comfort zone, then you're just stagnant. You reach this place where you might as well be dead. You're, you know, just wasting your life,
Exactly.
droning out. Yeah. I, you spoke a couple of times about being that voice for those people that weren't able to speak and being that representative. And that is truly where I think our stories and writing a book is so powerful, because not only are you unlocking those stories that lived inside of your mom or generationally, you're finally telling yourself, it's when you put pen to paper and that story down, it's giving yourself permission to let that channel through and to be that voice. But the other surprising thing when I started this business and started talking about my story so vulnerably was it gave permission to others who might not be ready yet. Like, you came to me not quite ready yet to come off of it, but because I had shared my story so vulnerably and authentically, it gave you this unspoken permission to be like, ooh, I could I could do that, you know. I'm curious, is that happening in your life as you are being that representative for other people in your business, in the cannabis sector, and through writing process? Are you
Oh,
starting to see people wake up and unlock?
um, I think as I go through my entrepreneurial journey, and I will say this over and over again, an entrepreneurial journey is definitely one for me is spiritual, and I'm finding that to be very common amongst a lot of entrepreneurs. Um, okay, hold on, let me see if I can remember your question. Your question was if I'm starting to kind of see. I feel like as I embody like this, yeah, when I share my story, it does allow people to be more vulnerable with me. I oh my gosh, let me get my mind right. I uploaded a podcast yesterday on my channel, and it was with Anna, our lovely friend,
Yeah.
and it's so nice that people listen to the story and then they're like, man, I can relate to so much of that, and it's it feels good. And then to even ask the question, well, would you please, like, share your story, because it could be something that could help someone else ultimately, like, change their life. So I think in wanting to share my story, I want to give people space to share theirs as well. And I think maybe that's why I love doing podcasts with interviews. Not necessarily that I always need to do an interview, but hearing other people's stories and sharing them, and maybe somebody can pick one or two things from that person, and then take it with them. So yeah, I hope, and I do see people more vulnerable in sharing. Or a nurse reached out to me on Instagram today and said, "Hey, as a nurse, I also like to dabble with, she put little leaves in there." And I was like, "Oh, thank you for sharing for me," because I know it can be scary to say those things out loud.
Absolutely.
And it is scary not knowing that person's circumstances, but to share, because it needs to not be scary. It needs to be normalized. It needs to be destigmatized. So that was, yeah, I love that. I love how people are more free to tell me about their use, especially. Yeah, I will say, in some of my groups where people just start telling me about their use because they know what I do. So that's, I mean, and kind of even owning that space. It took me a really long time to be like, I'm a cannabis nurse in Nebraska, right? Because I mean, we're out in the middle of nowhere, and it's barely medically legal. Tomorrow, I'm actually going back out to the Capitol, because
Yes, girl.
we need to get some shit done, okay? In Nebraska, we just fucking around, okay? So it's, yeah, I love when people can just come up to me and are so free to share whatever it is they want with me, because it brings me joy, and I love that. And if I can offer them a word of wisdom, and like, I'm not gonna sit here, if somebody asks me a question about a medication that they're taking, but like, that's gonna cost you $20 for that answer. Like, by all means, reach out to me, ask me some questions about my journey. Um, uh, Having lupus is scary. So for anybody out there who's suffering with lupus, I would love to hear their story. But yeah, I think it definitely does allow people to share their stories more
Vulnerably.
vulnerably. I can't even fucking say it now. Okay,
That's
you
okay,
edit that
girl.
out. Just kidding.
I will, that is another piece that is different. I'd like to highlight the differences between online coaching and nurse coaching, because it is so different. You're approaching it not from how much money I can make off this person, how much, I can bring in. You've said throughout this conversation how much joy it gives you when people come and tell you how good they're feeling. I feel like myself again. That is that nurse heart, that servant heart, that no amount of money can ever replace that in our world.
Yeah,
That is compensation for us when we see people healing and coming home to themselves and feeling better, and they're getting their quality of life back. And you just mentioned, we genuinely want to connect with our audience and with people around us and have those intentional conversations. It's not about how much money. You are not the next lead. You are not the next client on our roster. You are somebody to us that we genuinely would like to help. And we do have these incredible tools that we can use to help you as nurses.
absolutely.
So, and even more in entrepreneurship, because we have this freedom to tell you about things that we couldn't tell you under a corporate roof. And
Absolutely.
you're talking about Nebraska, where, yeah, your laws are very tight there, but it's indigenous land. You have
Amen, girl.
huge amounts of Indian land there, right? And Indians still in that area that are practicing these
That
methods.
is what I am looking for. There,
Yeah.
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 There's
So
definitely some,
Nebraska
yeah.
is an incredible place to base this off of. And yes, what a what a great place to honor the land and the people that were there before we came over and introduced penicillin.
Right, right.
So I love that. Well, how can we find you? How can we work with you? Where's Odilia hanging out?
You can find me on Instagram at mexi.canna, CANNA.RN. You can find me on LinkedIn, Odilia Hernandez Underwood. You can find me on YouTube, Healing Through the Leaf, and I'm also on Facebook. So Odilia Hernandez Underwood. You can also email me at odilia@coachingbyod.com if you want to reach out to me. I'm all about it. So I'm looking forward to hearing from people and spreading the gospel of, the Canna gods.
Yeah. And y'all, that's important to note when you reach out to us. We are the people behind the email. We are the people behind the messaging. It's not a robot. We are the people. We want to talk to you. We want to connect with you. Odelia, other than this book that you're writing, what else are you working on?
Um, excuse me. I'm currently
That
working
gold is one thing you're working on.
some chest gold. Yeah, I'm currently really into lobbying right now. So that is the goal until, if the Nebraskans for medical marijuana call me the moms or whatever, I am a part of them as well. I volunteer, but I want to be able to be used in a sense where as an expert, like I'm a registered nurse, I'm a veteran, I'm a mom. So that is definitely where I want to try to shove myself into, because I do want to get into policy change. I'm currently in school, getting my MSN, and that's the goal now, is policy. I was in a nurse practitioner program. I might go there again later. I don't know, not for now, but I'm really lit up by policy. I went to DC to help lobby for the AACN, and that was so cool. I mean, I loved it. Met so many wonderful nurses doing so many different things. And yeah, it was great. I think that is kind of where I want to maybe lead more, but educating. I see what am I doing now? I'm sorry. Yes. Let me not go all over the place. I would like to start a membership, or it's free, where people can come out, and so look for that here in the next month or so. Free membership. We can come hang out for a little bit and talk and light it up or something. You know what I'm saying?
I love it. Well, I
So
adore you. Her book will be out soon. We're still on the journey together, healing through the leaf. But for now, you can find her on YouTube. I'll link everything in the bio so you can find our girl, Odie. She's about to blow up.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for being on this journey with me. And y'all check her out. She is a powerhouse. So thank you. We're going to wrap this session up of Right to Rise. Everyone, I will put her stuff in the description below. And we will see you next episode. As always, continue rising, continue writing. Together we rise.
Amen.